we broke down Unit 4 into two parts, and I'll do the same for review purposes. So Unit 4 itself is 25% of the exam. Now, there are a few more standards for 4B, which is Civil War and Reconstruction. But be sure to also look at 4A, which is sectionalism leading up to the Civil War itself. All right, so let's get started. The first standard that they choose to outline for your final exam is knowing the differences between the North and the South. Okay, so on paper, the North is supposed to win. Okay, they control the majority of industry in the United States at around 92%. They have a much larger population. They also have the majority of railroads, which we know from Unit 5, railroads are extremely important, but ultimately they're used in the Civil War to transport goods and troops easily throughout the country. Okay, now there are some advantages for the South, which you should know. The first being exports. Okay, the South is the main exporter. Now, what are they exporting? Well, primarily cotton, okay, and other cash crops. Now, the problem with this is, while it is an advantage, we know that their economy relies heavily on it. So once we see the North's battle strategy of blockading the South, they're able to cut off the exports, which is going to kill the South's economy. Okay, this is really the only way that they make money is by growing these crops and selling them overseas. So when the blockade gets put in through the Anaconda Plan, the South honestly are kind of screwed. Okay, now let's talk about the biggest advantage that the South had, and that is their military leadership. Okay, think Stonewall Jackson, think Robert E. Lee. Those are brilliant military tacticians. Okay, and they are able to kind of lessen the South's negatives. Okay, they make the South seem a lot stronger. Okay, and they are the reason why the war lasts as long as it does. Okay, so you do need to know that the South does have the better military leaders. Now, it wouldn't hurt you to also know the North's main leaders. Okay, primarily General Grant. Okay, Sherman as well. Okay, that would not hurt. However, the South does have the edge. Okay. Next few slides are going to cover President Lincoln because he really is going to do a lot during the war. Okay. Now, the first thing you need to know, obviously, is the election of 1860 kind of leads directly to the Civil War. Okay, South Carolina is going to argue that they don't feel well represented by President Lincoln. He is a Republican candidate. They fear that he will get rid of slavery. Now, as we know from this unit, that was not his plan. Remember, he said if I could end the war without ending slavery, I would do it. Okay. However, once South Carolina secedes, Lincoln's main goal is to preserve the Union. That's what this is all about. Let's preserve the Union. Now, in order to accomplish that goal, he's going to do a few things. He's going to kind of expand presidential power. The first way he's going to do this is he's going to suspend the writ of habeas corpus. What this means is you don't need a trial, you don't need to be taken before a judge, you can just be imprisoned. Okay? That's it. Doesn't matter. So he did use this quite a lot. Over 13,000 people will be arrested. Essentially, if you were defending the South in any way or you were a threat to public safety, Lincoln could have you arrested. And obviously he did. Okay, so this was kind of the first major expansion of presidential power. Okay. Now, during wartime, again, Lincoln is going to play a role, especially with his speeches. Okay, he is going to kind of rally some people. So firstly, after the Battle of Antietam, Lincoln will issue the Emancipation Proclamation. Okay, now if you recall, this is an executive order that frees slaves in rebelling territories. So only in the 11 Confederate states slaves are free. Okay, he does not free slaves in border states. He does this because he fears if he frees the border states as well, the border states will leave the Union and join the Confederacy. Okay, so the executive order, the Emancipation Proclamation, will only free slaves in rebelling territories. Now, will this really do something? Not really, because these territories say that they're not a part of the United States. So, of course, they will not listen to an executive order. Okay, but what this does is it kind of shifts the tide of war. Okay, so it gets public opinion from seeing, oh, Civil War is about preserving the Union, to, oh, maybe the Civil War is about slavery. Okay, now he's going to have another very important speech, the Gettysburg Address. The Gettysburg Address will follow the Battle of Gettysburg, okay, the deadliest battle in the Civil War. Okay, and he will go out there and he will kind of dedicate the cemetery to the fallen soldiers, you know, so sorry that we lost 50,000 people here, that's horrible, okay, but keep fighting, finish the war, finish the drill, let's get it done, okay, we can't keep having these battles, okay, give it your all, and the war will be over. That is essentially the Gettysburg Address. Let's inspire the people to finish strong. All right, and Lincoln's very last speech, his second inaugural address. So he gets reelected in 1864, okay, and he goes out to kind of discuss the closing of the war. The war is kind of wrapping up. We feel like surrender is coming soon, okay, and he will go out and he will kind of address the South. He will say, with malice towards none and with charity for all. In other words, I do not plan on punishing the South. I want them to come home. Okay. I want to preserve the Union. Come on back and let's rebuild our happy family. Okay. So he was kind of encouraging a peaceful transition. Okay. Which kind of alludes to his plan of presidential reconstruction. What is presidential reconstruction exactly? Well, Lincoln's plan is extremely, extremely lenient. Okay, let's get the South back in quickly. Okay, let's preserve the Union quickly. Let's not drag this out. Let's not cause more animosity, more sectionalism. Let's just repair this relationship as fast as possible. Okay, so he proposes the 10% plan. Okay, let's ratify the 13th Amendment. Let's end slavery everywhere. Okay, let's cancel secession. Okay, tell everybody that you're back in the Union, and not only tell them, but 10% of the voters needs to pledge loyalty back to the Union. Now 10% is extraordinarily small. Okay, but again, it's because he wanted this done quickly. Let's get everybody back in, okay, and then we can focus on fully rebuilding. All right, so presidential reconstruction, far, far more lenient. We move forward. The standards do not focus on congressional reconstruction, but just to note, you should know that it is much harsher. Additionally, it did provide far more support to former slaves, okay? Particularly with the creation of the Freedmen's Bureau, okay? This was an organization set out to help former slaves transition into society, okay? So their existence prior, under slavery, obviously there were, I don't want to call it supports, but there were ways to be fed. There were ways to be housed, okay? Your plantation owners would provide that, okay? Now, once slavery is ended, do you have those systems? Do you have food? Do you have clothing? Do you have medical supplies? Okay, things that you need to operate in society, okay? So it was just set out to provide those basic necessities. However, it did go above and beyond, and its most lasting legacy is certainly education. Okay, they provided schools to help teach basic skills, reading and math. Okay, because those are things you must be able to do in order to be successful in society. And as a result of this focus on educating former slaves and Black Americans, we begin to see a lasting legacy, especially regarding HBCUs. Okay, if you look at a map, you can note that where there were active Freedmen's Bureau education facilities, this is kind of where HBCUs developed. Okay, so just an extraordinarily lasting impact on educating Black Americans. I do also want you to know your amendments. Okay, if I had to guess, I would say that they would give you an excerpt and have you connect the amendment. All right, so you should have a basic idea of what each one does. The 13th abolishes slavery. Okay, completely. Not just in the rebelling territories, but everywhere in the United States, slavery is done. Okay, your 14th Amendment, if you are born in the United States, you are a citizen. Okay, and lastly, the 15th, the right to vote cannot be denied on account of race. All men, regardless of race, can vote. Now, you should know women do not yet have this right. Women are still excluded. And I think that is important to note as well. Lastly, they would like you to be aware of the different resistance movements that emerge during Reconstruction. So firstly, Black Codes. Okay, these are laws, state laws, primarily passed in the South, of course, designed to keep Black people in the lower levels of society. Okay, to kind of maintain white supremacy, essentially. And out of Black Codes, we do see certain organizations formed, specifically the KKK, terrorist organizations that use violence, that use intimidation methods to keep Black people from exercising rights that they have gained through Reconstruction. Okay, so for example, they would pass different measures or intimidate Black voters, Black men voters, who were attempting to use their newly gained 15th Amendment. So if y'all remember that political cartoon of the Black man at the polling station standing next to white men who are holding him at gunpoint, and you remember the caption, it says, of course he wants to vote for the Democratic ticket. Okay, does he really want to? Absolutely not. Okay, but at gunpoint, you're going to make a different decision. Okay, so you do need to be aware of the different resistance methods that formed as a result of Reconstruction.